All right, so we're working in the shop today. It's just me. I don't know where my dog is. I will procure her later and check on the weather if you're so inclined. But for now, we're looking at what normally is a working bay. There should be a car in this bay on the lift. There's not. I'm working on a Subaru 360 project. Let me walk through this pile of engines and show you what we got going on. So let's see, this Subaru 360 van came to me a couple years ago. I've got the brakes sorted out. Well, everything was rusted. The brakes were bearings and gas tank and engine. Everything was a huge mess, and it's starting to go back together, albeit very slowly. And so the engines that I'm going to talk about are for this van. And there's a difference in engines. In other words, the vans have a little different engine tin setup. There's a cooler for the battery. They have a lower gear set. And let me grab that phone. Okay, let's see. Where were we before we got rudely interrupted? We were talking about this Subaru 360 van. It's a 1969. It's a two-stroke, two-cylinder air-cooled van. Very desirable now, but when these were first introduced in the early 70s, late 60s, they were not welcomed. They were trashed. They were cheap. Americans especially had a very bad perception of Subaru taking market share from American cars. And so that leads me to what I'm about to show you is the engines that go into that van or the cars, which I have a few Subaru 360s laying about, one there, and I think 5 more out in the lot. I want to talk to you about the stock Subaru 360 power plant. So about a year ago, I did a video on this engine, which was in such bad shape, I had to pound the cylinders off, pound the pistons out to get it free. It had been stored in a bad, not a bad place, but in a moisture-laden place where the humidity got and rusted everything. And I was so excited to get the crankshaft finally free and turning, because that's the hardest part, is the crankshaft because of the bearings. Oh, somebody's calling me. Hold on again. Okay, so we're back again. Sorry about that. This is the engine that came out of that van that's up on my lift, and it was really, really stuck. And I thought I had it unstuck and something that I can build upon. I took off the top part, looked inside, made sure all the gears were intact, the synchros were good, got the crankshaft to rotate. This is the authentic van engine, numbers matching, that would go in that van. However, numbers matching doesn't mean so much as it does in the muscle car world. When I pulled this cover off, I found that the end of the shaft, I don't know if I can get it off with my clean hands, had broken. So the main shaft had broken off the tip into the overdrive bearing. That makes for a problem, and I was super disappointed. And if you want, you can go back and watch the video on that. So that made me looking for another gear set. The customer didn't want me to go through and rebuild everything at a higher cost than if to just find a good used one. And I thought I might have a good used one laying around. So that brings me to my good used ones. What do I have? I need to find a van case that's in good shape, that is specific to the van. And the differences are, this is not a van case. It's got a plug in it. Actually, you know what? That is a van case. It's marked as a sedan. That actually might be a good one. Vans had a fuel pump on the front right here. So I'll check that out. This one was pretty dirty. It was sludged up, but I do have the covers off, and I've looked inside. The synchros are good. So that is a potential. The other one is this one here. Again, these are all leftover bits and bobs. You can tell this piston assembly is no good. The crankshaft does turn. No, it doesn't. This is rusted. That's as far as those bearings move. So that crank is junk. To get new bearings on the crank, you have to break or spread all those cheeks apart to get new bearings. This bearing is good on this crankshaft. However, this crank is junk because the end is broke off. It's completely sheared. So that's junk. So I'm trying to find something to put together this engine for the guy in the van and have authentic numbers matching. What's probably going to happen is I'll take his crankshaft out of here, clean up that case if it is indeed a van case, make sure it's all in good shape, make sure that this shaft, like on his, isn't broken off. His was sheared off, so that all the gears work, everything functions, and it's in good shape. You can see this has got bent studs, broken studs. I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of these Subaru 360 parts and Subaru 360s were not taken care of very well. They were considered disposable. So a guy like me comes along 40 or 50 years later, tries to make something of these, and I have a hard time because everything is just bent, broken, twisted, or rusted. So I'm going to try to make an engine out of all of these 5. I think I've got enough parts to do that. It's going to take a while. This one here is what is this one? This is a sedan. I've marked it. So it's got the sedan final drive, but the crankshaft doesn't turn over all the way. It gets stuck about right there. So I think there's carbon in there. This crankshaft may be savable. So of all 5 of these engines, I think I have 2 crankshafts. And I'm going to try to build a couple engines. So this is our Subaru tech for the day. Look at the stuff I have to deal with. Stuff is just botched. Like this flange here for the CV boot, the axle came undone because someone used the wrong bolts, and the axle swung around and it damaged that. They overheated and melted pistons. I mean, the list just goes on. They've been submerged in salt water or rust. So many things can happen to these things. It's amazing that I can do what I can do to make these things survive. So I hope I'm not just rambling on, gave you some insight into what I'm doing. But if this is indeed a van case, I'm going to try to build this up for the guy and make him happy. See what I can do. All right, thanks for staying tuned. Sorry for all the disruptions, and let's get to work. Let's make something work.